And I've really had a problem with anger since I was a kid. I would probably have a couple really, really big meltdowns a year, mostly at home. Did include, I guess, verbal shouting as well as property damage.
So sort of the progression of my IED. So like as a little girl, I would say like 10, maybe 10 it was starting, I would have explosive fights over the smallest things. I still find that being a problem for me. Having explosive fights with the core or like the spark being a very small thing. And that happened in, those included things like property damage, kicking out walls and ramming things into walls, different things. I remember it was really sad. I threw my iPod Touch as hard as I possibly could on the linoleum floor. And that was the end of that, and it was really sad because that thing was so cool. I was like 12 and I had my iPod Touch that I saved all my money for, and that was just the end of it. So that's damage since then. So thousands of dollars worth of damage, which is characteristic of this disorder, as well as so financial ramifications, legal ramifications. I'm very thankful to not have been in trouble with the law for my behavior, but there are many cases when that could have been the possibility with, being like a public nuisance or belligerent, like any sort of those things, driving tickets. Then in college, I found that it was the worst in my junior year when I was living with 4 other girls. And it was way better before then when living with less people. When there were 4 people, I felt like I had nowhere to go. I was annoyed all the time. And I was also very depressed that year, which I'll talk about later, which is considered a comorbidity, which means that at the same time that I ID, I also had depression. And so they feed into each other. And when I got to college,
in the first semester or so, I became, even though I've had anger problems and problems with anxiety, I experienced depression, even though, of course, you don't really know it when it's happening. But the anger really flares up with depression, and so the two are actually very, very connected. I'm doing fine in the beginning of the week. The end of the week comes, I'm not doing as well, and the weekends, like Friday, Saturday's like huge explosion, and then Sunday's like recuperating. And then I'm back to, and then so it was the same thing over and over. So a lot of times it was like after an outburst, I would go into a depression, but also in a depression, I would be more likely to be angry than if I was in a normal state. So like it just, the things just really work together. At one point, my psychiatrist said, what if we tried to get the depression under control and see what that did for the anger? And that's ultimately where the best results came from, is when I went on Prozac. Didn't work at first. I went up, and I've been at 40. So that's like, it's not the highest dose, but I'm at 40, and that's been the biggest help. I tried things like propranolol, which is meant to slow you down. It slows down your heart rate, so it lowers your blood pressure, and the thought is to give you time in between your thought and your action. Didn't work. I was on Prozac starting in 2019. Yeah, like August 2019. So we're going on 2 years now, and that has helped the most, getting the depression under control to help the anger, because when your depression's not okay, you're not going to be as resilient to be able to handle things that will make you angry, and you're not going to be able to put in the work and do the work on your beliefs that's going to help you avoid the anger. People won't get it. It could be legitimately anything at any point in time. You could be feeling any emotion before that, and then suddenly everything changes. So, like I was saying,
you could change your mood from totally fine to incredibly angry, the snap of a finger, and you will go 0 to 100 and feel like you are unable to control it at all. Like there's no, how I always explain it is there's no thoughts that are happening. It's just your body or your rage takes over, the emotion takes over. There's no logic. There's no thoughts of thinking things through. There's no, I'm going to slow this down now. There's none of that. There's no thoughts happening. For me, I mean, one time I wrote out all the triggers I could think about. It is the most, it's like elevators, and then it's like customer service, and then it's like just like the most random things that have no connection to each other. The only pattern I could come up with is a lot of the times it was around expectations of others and not being able to control certain situations like group projects. Last summer, I had an internship. It was downtown. I started off by driving my car. It got to the point where I could not handle driving a car anymore. I think I knew that was going to be the case, but there was one day when something happened and I said, I can't drive a car anymore. You have to pick me up right now. I'm never driving a car again.
You know, there's always things in your control. You control your vehicle. You control your, you can't control your thoughts, but you can control your actions. Well, once a trigger is pulled or tripped, there, with a person with IED, you lose control of simple things. Your words. Your brain goes from controlling what you say, you know, the cuss words, the derogatory words, at times, maybe even, some people, maybe even a racist word. I'm not going to go into all that, at least not this time. But you lose control is what I'm saying. And when you lose, with me, I'm a fairly strong guy. I'm not as strong as I used to be, but I'm still a strong guy. And used to be when I was in an episode, and even now, when I get into an episode and I go off the deep end, I mean, you don't care no more. And once you get to the point where you don't care, because of your emotions flood you at that moment, it's like an adrenaline doping person. Well, not an adrenaline doping person, but it's like 100 tons of adrenaline just hit your system at one time, and you become a super person. Back in the 60s and 70s, maybe even some of the 80s, you hear about people on LSD, PCP, and all that had superhuman strength. You know, cops couldn't control them. You know, handcuffs, couldn't control them, you know, because of the drugs, the illicit drugs they were on. Well, I've never done any of that stuff, but I've broke police handcuffs. Just drinking. But I was in a full episode. I broke police handcuffs. Cop hit me right here. I had it coming. I totally had it coming. The things I was saying, I was told later down the road, because I don't remember. The things I was saying to the cop is 100% beyond anything that I would ever even dream of saying to anybody, let alone act on. That's the IED. I was in a full episode. The medicine I'm on seems to be working pretty good. Cymbalta. I'm not going to tell you a dosage or anything like that, but Cymbalta, duloxetine. Seems to be helping. Maybe it's time for me to up my dosage up. At night, I take that in the morning, or shortly after I get up. At night, I take Trazodone to help me sleep. Because one of my worst things, one of my biggest triggers at night, is I hurt so bad, I can't hardly move. Or I move so much. I toss, I turn, just to try to get comfortable. It makes me mad. I get up, I start sweating. I have heat issues. I start sweating, I get hot, I start to get angry. So those are the two meds that I'm on. Do they help? Yes. Do they fix it? Pardon my language, but I'm going to say this the correct way. Hell no. Just like there's no fix for PTSD or bipolar disease or anything like that, you just medicate it. Doctors just medicate it and go on. There's no real medicine for IED. There's just stuff to help. If I let my IED get away, boom, all of a sudden I'm up swinging. Okay? My mind takes over. I can control mine pretty well. I haven't had a bad outburst in a while, and since I go to sense it, I try to shut it down. I go lay down, whatever. So
sometimes with extreme acts of violence, like 11-year-old Lana.
She killed some chickens because she was angry at us. She was kicking the farm animals and hitting them with sticks. She's very cruel to Natasha behind closed doors. We'd been to the hospital with stitches, black eyes.
She kicks me, she punches me, tries to kill me. That is true that I really don't like her when she's just a pain in the butt to me.
And that's just Lana.
Shut up, Lana.
Imagine the toll a 15-year-old boy can take.
Dima, how many times do I have to say, do not say shut up?
Well, don't you keep her mouth shut.
How about if I give you,
Even now, he can become violent, beating up kids at school and his sisters at home.
Dima!
I give her sauce and have her for my children. She don't want it.
if they got him angry, he would toss him around. He'd pick him up and throw him. He put Lana's head through a window one time. The neighbors have called me saying that they've seen him lifting them up by the back of the jacket and swinging them by their neck.
Again, he was my first child. I thought he was just spoiled. Boys will be boys. I got that a lot. You know, that he would settle down and just give it time. And looking back, I have photographs. I used to work at my mother's office, and we would have like a playpen for him, and he would push the playpen over to the bookshelves, and he would rip all the books off the walls and scream at us and look like he was gonna, like if he could climb out, he would hurt us. And we would take pictures thinking, look how cute he is. He's 3 years old and throwing a tantrum, not realizing what it was. It wasn't until he was 9 that we knew.
And he hurt your other son.
Yeah, he grabbed him by the face and slammed his head into the wall and looked at me and said, what happened? And I thought perhaps he tripped him or pushed him and didn't mean to hurt him as badly as he had. And on the car ride to the hospital, my 8-year-old said, Mommy, he grabbed me by my face and he hit my head in the wall. He slammed it hard. And he ended up with 4 staples. And that's when somebody finally stepped up and offered us help.
Sarah Beth has locks on all of her doors
Yes,
inside,
and cameras now too.
inside of your house.
How has kleptomania affected your life most?
I shut myself off from the world. I have never stuck with friends. I haven't stuck with family. I'm very shameful about my kleptomania, and I don't like to share it because, how do you tell people that you have a problem with stealing? They're automatically not going to trust you.
I lived a secret life for about 10 years from age 15 to 25. I had 2 arrests that definitely took a toll on me in terms of the embarrassment and the cost and the fear around that.
It sort of traumatized me, to be honest. I just felt completely compelled to do it. I felt like the behavior was not controllable. It made me question a lot about myself.
Can you get into the emotions that you felt before, during, and after stealing something?
You're really nervous and you're sort of like excited and also a bit of dread mixed in.
Sometimes I would feel like excited or high or powerful. Other times I was really stressed and it would seem to kind of take the edge off.
You're like, I felt so good after that. That sense of relief, that anxiety, that pressure is over.
How extreme would you say that your symptoms of kleptomania are?
Very extreme, I would say. It was not just a daily occurrence, it was often a multiple times a day occurrence. If I was in a place where it was possible, it was going to happen.
I couldn't go a day or a minute without stealing.
A minute?
It was like obsessive thoughts almost, like you can't let go of it.
Anything, I was just taking it home and hoarding it. And even while I was doing that, I'd be thinking, fucking weird. But I still wanted to do it.
Do you think addictions to things like drugs and gambling compares at all to kleptomania?
I really found it very hard to stop stealing for very long. I feel driven. I feel like I can't stop myself. I feel so much anxiety or discomfort when I'm not acting out or getting my drug that I feel I almost have to do it to get relief.
They all have to do with impulse control, trauma, and pain. Stealing was the only way I was able to get my dopamine levels back to the way that they needed to be and helped me function throughout the day. Even just thinking about stealing was enough to get me going and get me up out of bed. I had substance abuse issues because substances were the only thing that kept me from stealing. It's like if I wasn't on something, I wanted to steal, and I hated myself for stealing, and I didn't want to do this. I'm like, I'm better off being a drug addict, and that's more acceptable than it is to be a kleptomaniac. Unfortunately.